Somewhere in your house, or in the house next door, there's a large carnivore asleep on the floor. It has 42 teeth. Its jaws are built to hold a struggling animal and break bone. Everything about its body is equipment for killing things larger than you, and you let it sleep in a room with your children. It's a dog. You gave it a name. You probably talk to it out loud when nobody else is home. But describe it honestly, and it is a domesticated wolf living in your house, eating in your kitchen, and we find that so completely ordinary that the strangeness of it never lands. There are 8 billion of us, and something like 1 billion of them on every continent, in our beds, at our feet, written into our wills. No other species on Earth has an arrangement like this with any other species, and the story we tell about how it got there is almost certainly backwards. This is the oldest deal we ever made. Before agriculture, before pottery, before a single sheep or goat or grain of wheat, before anyone anywhere had planted anything on purpose. The genetic estimates argue over how far back, somewhere between 15 and 40,000 years, depending on which mutation rate you trust. The oldest bones nobody argues about are around 15,000 years old. Either way, the arrangement predates civilization entirely. We were still hunting when it started. We had dogs before we had farms. Here's the version everyone knows. Some clever hunter finds a den, takes a cub, raises it by the fire, and it grows up loyal. Do that enough times, and you have dogs. Humans in charge, start to finish. But here's the thing. We have tried it, repeatedly, under controlled conditions, with wolf cubs taken at days old and hand-raised by people around the clock. It does not produce a dog. It produces a wolf that knows you. A hand-raised wolf will bond with the person who raised it. Then it reaches sexual maturity and it stops deferring. It starts testing. It does not obey, because obeying is not a wolf behavior. Wolves negotiate. And critically, none of that tameness passes to its puppies. Every generation you start again from nothing. Taming an individual and domesticating a species are not the same process. One is a relationship. The other is a change in the genome. There's a second problem with the clever hunter story. If domestication were simply a matter of someone thinking of it, it should have happened constantly with dozens of species all over the world. It didn't. Out of the thousands of mammal species that have shared a landscape with us, a handful ever crossed over, the idea was never the hard part. So try it the other way around. We didn't go and get them. They came to us, and the thing that pulled them in was rubbish. A hunter-gatherer camp produces waste, bone, gristle, marrow, the parts nobody wants. For a wolf, that pile is a reliable, low-risk food source that never fights back. The only obstacle is the humans standing next to it. Now, the important part. How close a wild animal will let you get before it runs is not a decision. It's a trait. It varies between individuals, it is at least partly heritable, and it is under selection. A wolf that panics at 100 meters eats nothing. A wolf that can tolerate humans at 30 meters eats every night. Nobody chose those animals. Nobody bred them. The rubbish heap did the selecting, generation after generation, and we didn't have to know it was happening. That is the self-domestication hypothesis, and it is still a hypothesis, but it explains the shape of the evidence far better than the clever hunter does. And here's what makes that so uncomfortable. The wolves who took the deal were probably not the best wolves. A large, bold, successful animal at the center of a functioning pack has no reason to go anywhere near a human camp. The ones with an incentive to try something humiliating and dangerous are the ones doing badly. Smaller, younger, pushed to the margins, losing. Dogs are not descended from the wolves that were winning. They're descended from the ones that had nothing left to lose. One more thing that surprises people. The wolf outside your window is not your dog's ancestor. It's your dog's cousin. Dogs and modern gray wolves both descend from wolf populations that no longer exist, and the genomic work suggests dogs draw on at least 2 separate ancient wolf sources. The animal that actually walked up to the fire is gone. What we have is its descendants, asleep on our floors. In 1959, a Soviet geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev started an experiment in Novosibirsk to test exactly this. He took silver foxes and selected on one thing only. Not size, not coat, not intelligence. He offered a hand and he bred the animals that didn't flee from it. Nothing else was ever selected for. Within a few decades, the foxes changed in ways nobody had asked for. Ears went floppy, tails curled upward. White patches appeared on faces that had been uniformly silver. Muzzles shortened. Breeding seasons shifted. Stress hormones dropped and social hormones rose. None of that was selected for. It came along for the ride, dragged behind the single trait he was actually breeding, as though tameness is not one gene but a thread, and pulling it unravels a whole developmental package. But that experiment has been challenged, and the challenge matters. In 2020, a group of researchers pointed out that Belyaev's founding foxes came from Canadian fur farms, where they had already been bred in captivity for generations, and were already less fearful than wild foxes. Some of the traits may have been in the population before the experiment started. The core finding survives. Select for tameness alone and other things move with it. But the neat story of a wild fox turning into a pet in 40 years is not quite what happened. Worth knowing, because it is the single most repeated fact about domestication on the internet. So that is what they got. A food supply. What did we get? Think about what a camp is at night. A ring of firelight, everyone inside it asleep. And beyond it, a landscape full of things that would rather you weren't there. For 2 million years, the only defense against that was somebody staying awake. A wolf at the edge of camp changes that arithmetic completely. It hears at frequencies you cannot. It smells an approaching animal long before you would see one. And crucially, it reacts loudly, without being asked, at 3 a.m. for free. We did not have to train the first ones to do that. Alarm barking at an intruder is simply what a canid does. We just had to let it happen near us. Somewhere in there, human beings stopped taking turns watching the dark. We handed the night shift to something with better ears. And the deal kept adjusting. When we started farming, our rubbish changed. Less bone and marrow, more grain and scraps of bread. Dogs changed with it. Compared to wolves, dogs carry extra copies of a gene for the enzyme that breaks down starch. The difference shows up clearly in the genome. Wolves are built to eat meat. Dogs are built to eat leftovers. They did not merely move in with us. They rebuilt their digestion around whatever we happened to be eating. Whatever the mechanism, look at what came out the other end. Put food under one of 2 cups. Let a dog watch you point at the correct one. The dog goes straight to it. It understands that your gesture is about something. Chimpanzees, who share almost all of our DNA, largely fail this. Wolves raised by humans from birth largely fail it. Dogs, including puppies with almost no training, pass. Dogs read us better than our closest living relatives can. And it goes deeper than behavior. In 2019, researchers dissected the faces of dogs and wolves and found a muscle in the dog that the wolf does not have. It is called the levator anguli oculi medialis, and its only job is to lift the inner corner of the eyebrow. That movement, the one that makes a dog's eyes look larger and sadder, triggers a caretaking response in humans. Studies of shelter dogs found that the ones who made that face more often were rehomed faster. Sit with that. Selection rebuilt the dog's face to broadcast a signal that only one species on Earth can receive. There may even be an address for it. In 2017, a team found structural variants in dogs near a gene called GTF2I. In humans, losing that stretch of chromosome causes Williams-Beuren syndrome, and one of its most striking features is extreme indiscriminate social friendliness, an almost complete absence of wariness towards strangers. The friendliest thing about your dog may sit in the same genetic neighborhood as the friendliest thing about certain people. 14,200 years ago, in what is now Germany, somebody was nursing a sick puppy. We know because the animal was found buried at Bonn Oberkassel, and its teeth carry the damage left by a severe case of canine distemper. It caught the disease at around 19 weeks old. It survived for weeks afterwards, which, without veterinary care, means somebody kept it warm and got water into it over and over while it was too ill to do anything at all. That puppy could not hunt. It could not guard. It could not work. It was pure cost. And when it died, they buried it with 2 people, a man and a woman in the same grave. Not near them, with them. That is 14,000 years ago, before farming, before writing, before anything we would call a village. And someone had already decided that a dog was family, which brings it back to the carnivore on your floor. In 2015, researchers measured oxytocin, the hormone that binds a parent to an infant, in dogs and their owners before and after they looked at each other. In both, it went up, in both directions. The longer the mutual gaze, the bigger the rise. They ran the same test with hand-raised wolves. Nothing. The wolves mostly avoided eye contact altogether. Your dog did not simply learn your commands. Somewhere in 15,000 years of standing near our fires, it found the circuit we use to love our own children, and it plugged itself in. So watch what it does when you walk into a room. It looks at your face, not at your hands, not for a command, at your face, checking what kind of mood walked in. That is 15,000 years of an animal studying human beings, still running in your kitchen. We tell ourselves we took them, that we saw something useful and went and got it. Everything we can actually dig up says otherwise. They came to the edge of the light on their own and waited to see what we would do.